Chapter 1. The Discovery. My name is Tom Rourke, and I used to think the worst thing about being married to Jenny was her mother's weekly phone calls criticizing my career choices. Turns out, I was spectacularly wrong about that. It started on a Tuesday morning in March, when I found a gym bag in Jenny's trunk that definitely wasn't mine. Now, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I fix computers for a living, not solve mysteries, but even I know my own underwear. The Calvin Klein boxer briefs with the size large tag? Not mine. I'm a medium guy, in every sense of the word. The expensive cologne that smelled like it cost more than my monthly car payment? Also not mine. I buy my deodorant at Walmart, but it was the little note tucked into the side pocket that really got my attention. Property of C. Thanks for last night, G. Well, that was interesting. My wife Jenny's initial is J, sure enough, but I'm Tom, not C. And I definitely hadn't received any thank you notes for anything lately, especially not for anything that would require a change of underwear. I stood there in our driveway at 7 in the morning, holding another man's underwear, wondering when exactly my life had turned into a bad country song. The neighbors were probably getting a good show. Tom Rourke, 38-year-old computer repair guy, examining men's underwear in his pajamas like some kind of textile detective. Jenny came out of the house then, looking like she always did. Perfect. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that effortless ponytail that probably took her 20 minutes to achieve, and she was wearing her usual workout gear that cost more than most people's rent. She'd been a fitness trainer for 5 years now, ever since she decided that being married to an IT guy wasn't glamorous enough for her Instagram feed. "What are you doing out here?" she asked, but her eyes went straight to the gym bag in my hands. "Just wondering whose bag this is," I said, keeping my voice casual. "Found it in your trunk." She didn't even blink. "Oh, that's probably one of my clients. They're always leaving stuff behind after sessions." Your client wears size large Calvin Klein underwear?" "Some of my clients are men, Tom." She said it like I was stupid for not knowing this. "I do co-ed training sessions." Right, co-ed training sessions. That explained everything, didn't it? "And they leave their underwear behind because..." Jenny sighed, the way she always did when she thought I was being unreasonable. "They work out hard, they sweat, they change clothes. Sometimes things get mixed up. It happens." She reached for the bag, but I held on to it. "What about this note?" For just a second, maybe half a second, something flickered across her face. Fear? Guilt? Then it was gone, replaced by that patient smile she used when she was explaining something to someone she considered intellectually inferior. "What note?" I showed her the piece of paper. She read it, frowned, and shrugged. "I have no idea what that is. Maybe it's old? Maybe it was already in the bag when my client brought it?" "Maybe. Maybe pigs could fly too." "Which client?" I asked. "What?" "Which client does the bag belong to? I'll drop it off at the gym for you." Another pause. Longer this time. "I don't remember off the top of my head. I have a lot of clients, Tom. I'll handle it." She took the bag from me and headed back toward the house. I'm late for my morning session. I watched her go, noting how quickly she moved, how eager she seemed to get away from this conversation. In 10 years of marriage, I'd learned to read Jenny's moods pretty well. Right now, she was nervous, very nervous. After she left, I did what any suspicious husband would do in 2024. I checked our home security system. We'd installed cameras 6 months ago, after a break-in down the street, and they covered the living room, kitchen, and front entrance. Jenny had complained about them at first, said they made her feel like she was being watched in her own home. No. Looking at the footage from the previous evening, I was starting to understand why. The timestamp showed 8:47 p.m. Jenny was on the couch with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, muscular, dark hair. They were sitting close together, very close, and they were definitely not discussing workout routines. At least, not the kind you do in a gym. I watched them kiss. I watched him put his hands on my wife. I watched her respond in ways she hadn't responded to me in months. The whole thing lasted about 20 minutes before they moved out of camera range, presumably toward the bedroom. They came back into view around 10:15, both looking satisfied and disheveled. The man left through the front door at 10:23, but not before Jenny handed him a gym bag, the same gym bag I'd found in her trunk that morning. I sat in my home office, staring at the computer screen, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of working 60-hour weeks to pay for her gym membership, her personal training certification, her endless supplements and workout clothes and protein shakes. 10 years of listening to her complain about how boring our life was, how she wanted more excitement, more adventure. Apparently, she'd found it. My phone buzzed. A text from Jenny. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. I looked at the text, then at the frozen image on my computer screen, showing my wife kissing another man on our couch. Sure thing, honey, I typed back. Have fun at work. Chapter 2. Meet the competition. The next few days passed in a strange kind of suspended animation. Jenny went about her routine. Early morning workouts, client sessions, evening business meetings, while I went about mine, fixing computers and pretending I didn't know my marriage was over. But I was learning things. Lots of things. For instance, I learned that my wife had been having regular protein parties with her trainer friends, which sounded innocent enough until I realized these parties always happened when I was working late or out of town. I learned that she'd been buying expensive lingerie, none of which I'd ever seen her wear. And I learned that she'd been telling people I was going through a midlife crisis and becoming impossible to live with. That last part came from her friend Kelsey, who apparently had the discretion of a town crier and the volume to match. I overheard her talking to Jenny on the phone while I was in the garage, working on my car. I still can't believe you're putting up with Tom's attitude, Kelsey was saying, her voice carrying clearly through the open kitchen window. I mean, I know he's your husband and all, but you deserve better than some boring computer guy who doesn't appreciate what he has. Tell me about it, Jenny replied. He's been so suspicious lately, asking weird questions about my work, going through my stuff. It's like he doesn't trust me. Well, you know what they say, guilty conscience makes you paranoid. He's probably the one cheating. They both laughed at that. The idea of me cheating was apparently hilarious. Chad thinks I should just tell him I want a divorce, Jenny continued. Get it over with. Chad. So that was his name. Chad's right, Kelsey agreed. You've been miserable for months, and it's not like Tom would fight you on it. He's too passive. Passive, that was their assessment of me. Too passive to fight for my marriage. Too boring to keep my wife interested. Too stupid to notice when she was stepping out on me. They were wrong about that last part, obviously. But maybe they had a point about the passive thing. Maybe it was time to be a little more active in my approach to problem solving. I spent the next week doing research. Not the kind of research that involves hiring private investigators or installing spy software. I'm not a creep, and I'm definitely not interested in going to jail. But the kind of research that involves paying attention to public information and using the resources I already had, like our home security system, which had been faithfully recording Jenny's activities for months, like our shared credit card statements, which showed regular charges at expensive restaurants I'd never been to, like our phone bill, which showed hundreds of texts to a number I didn't recognize. I also did some research on Chad. It wasn't hard. Jenny had mentioned his last name during one of her phone conversations with Kelsey, and there are only so many personal trainers named Chad DeWitt in our city. Chad DeWitt, age 35, certified personal trainer and nutrition specialist. Owner of Elite Fitness Solutions, a high-end personal training business that catered to wealthy clients who wanted to work out in private. Married to Melanie DeWitt, a sharp-looking brunette who worked as a paralegal at a downtown law firm. Chad was everything I wasn't. Tall, muscular, confident, and apparently comfortable with adultery. His social media was full of shirtless photos and motivational quotes about seizing life and taking what you deserve. He drove a white Tesla and lived in a house that was definitely outside the budget of a personal trainer, even a successful one. That got me curious, so I dug a little deeper. Public records are wonderful things when you know how to access them, and my job had taught me a lot about finding information online. Chad's business was doing well, but not well enough to support his lifestyle. The Tesla was leased, not owned. The house had a massive mortgage, and according to some forum posts I found, Chad was supplementing his income by selling performance-enhancing drugs to his clients. Now that was interesting. I also learned that Chad's wife, Melanie, had no idea about his extracurricular activities. Her social media showed a woman who was proud of her husband, supportive of his business, and completely unaware that he was screwing my wife on a regular basis. Poor Melanie. She seemed nice. By Friday of that week, I had a pretty complete picture of the situation. My wife was having an affair with a married personal trainer who was probably dealing steroids on the side. She was planning to divorce me. Her friends thought I was a boring loser who deserved whatever I got. And everyone involved seemed to think I was too passive and stupid to do anything about it. That's when I decided to prove them wrong. Chapter 3. Building Alliances. Saturday morning, I drove to Melanie DeWitt's law office. She worked weekends, according to the firm's website, and I figured it was better to approach her on neutral ground rather than show up at her house unannounced. The law office was downtown, in one of those old brick buildings that had been renovated to look modern but still had character. Melanie was at her desk when I arrived, looking professional in a navy blue suit, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Can I help you?" she asked, when I knocked on her open office door. "I hope so. My name is Tom Rourke. I think we need to talk about our spouses." Her expression didn't change, but I saw her hand pause over her keyboard. "I'm sorry? Your husband Chad and my wife Jenny. They've been having an affair." For a long moment, she just stared at me. Then she stood up and closed her office door. "Sit down," she said. I sat. She returned to her chair and folded her hands on her desk. "What makes you think that?" I pulled out my phone and showed her some of the security camera footage. Not the intimate stuff. I'm not that kind of person. But enough to make it clear what was happening. She watched without saying anything, her face completely neutral. When the video ended, she handed my phone back to me. How long has this been going on?" she asked. "At least 3 months, maybe longer. I only found out about it last week." "And what do you want from me?" That was a good question. What did I want from her? "I want them to face consequences for what they've done," I said finally. "Real consequences. Not just a quiet divorce and a slap on the wrist." Melanie leaned back in her chair, studying me. "What kind of consequences?" "The kind that make sure everyone knows what they really are. The kind that make sure they don't just walk away from this without losing anything." She was quiet for a long time. Then she opened her desk drawer and pulled out a legal pad. "Tell me everything you know," she said. For the next 2 hours, I told her about the gym bag, the security footage, the credit card charges, the phone records. She took notes, asked questions, and occasionally nodded. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me. "You know this is going to get ugly," she said. "It's already ugly. I just want to make sure I'm not the only one who gets hurt." "Fair enough." She tore off the top sheet of her legal pad and handed it to me. "Here's what we're going to do." The list was impressive. Melanie had a devious mind and the legal knowledge to back it up. Everything she suggested was completely legal, but it was also designed to cause maximum damage to both Chad and Jenny's reputations, finances, and social standing. "The key," she explained, "is to make sure they can't claim they're the victims. We document everything, we follow all legal procedures, and we make sure the truth comes out in the most public way possible." "Won't this hurt you too?" I asked. "I mean, people will know your husband was cheating." She smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "People will know my husband was cheating, and they'll know I was smart enough to destroy him for it. Trust me, that's not the kind of reputation that hurts a divorce attorney." We shook hands, and I left her office feeling better than I had in weeks. For the first time since I'd found that gym bag, I felt like I had some control over the situation. Jenny was at the gym when I got home, probably having a training session with Chad. I used the time to set up some additional security measures around the house. Not cameras this time, but other things. Things that would be useful later. When she got home that evening, she was in a good mood. She actually kissed me hello, which she hadn't done in months. "Good day?" I asked. "Great day. I think I'm finally making some real progress with my business." "That's wonderful, honey. I'm proud of you." She looked surprised. "Really? Of course. You've worked so hard to build your client base. You deserve all the success you get." She smiled, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married 10 years ago. Before the ambition and the dissatisfaction and the cheating. "I love you, Tom," she said. "I love you too," I replied, and meant it. That was the thing about betrayal. It didn't automatically kill love. It just made love more complicated. After dinner, Jenny went upstairs to take a shower. While she was gone, I checked our security system and saw that we had visitors scheduled for the next evening. Chad would be coming over while I was supposedly at my weekly poker game with my buddies. Except I wouldn't be at poker. I'd be somewhere else, setting the first part of Melanie's plan into motion. Chapter 4. The First Strike. Sunday evening. I told Jenny I was going to Ray's house for our weekly poker game. Ray was my neighbor, a retired cop who'd become my closest friend over the past few years. He was also the only person I'd told about Jenny's affair. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked as we sat in his living room, watching the security feed from my house on my laptop. "I'm sure. Because once you start down this road, there's no going back. Things are going to get messy." "They're already messy, Ray. I'm just making sure I'm not the only one who has to clean up." On the screen, we watched Chad arrive at my house. He used a key. Apparently Jenny had given him a key to my house, which was a nice touch. They didn't waste any time getting down to business. While they were occupied, Ray and I drove to Chad's house. Melanie had given me Chad's schedule, and we knew he'd be at my place for at least 2 hours. That gave us plenty of time for what we needed to do. Chad's white Tesla was parked in his driveway, and it was even more obnoxious up close than it had looked in photos. Ray kept watch while I got to work. I didn't damage the car. That would have been illegal. Instead, I decorated it. Saran wrap? Lots of it, covering every inch of the vehicle. Then I added some special touches. Magnetic letters spelling out "Propertib of Jenny's husband" across the hood, and several bags of protein powder dumped through the slightly open sunroof. The protein powder had been Jenny's idea, actually. She'd been buying it in bulk and storing it in our garage, claiming it was for her clients. I figured Chad's clients might appreciate the free samples. The final touch was a note tucked under the windshield wiper. "Thanks for the workout tips." 9. Ray and I were back at his house within an hour, watching the security feed as Chad left my place. He looked satisfied and relaxed, probably already planning his next visit. He wouldn't be so relaxed in the morning. Monday morning came with a phone call at 6:30 a.m. Jenny's phone, not mine, but she was in the shower, so I answered it. "Jenny?" The voice was male, angry, and unfamiliar. "No, this is her husband. Can I help you?" There was a pause. "Is this Tom?" "Yes." "Who's this?" "This is Chad. I need to talk to Jenny, now. She's in the shower." "Can I take a message?" "Tell her to call me immediately. We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Just tell her to call me." He hung up. I went upstairs and knocked on the bathroom door. "Jenny?" Chad called. "He says you have a problem and need to call him immediately. The water shut off." "Chad called here?" "Yes. He sounded upset about something." Jenny came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, looking worried. "What did he say exactly?" "Just that you have a problem and need to call him. He wouldn't tell me what kind of problem." She grabbed her phone and dialed. I could hear Chad's voice through the speaker, loud and agitated, but I couldn't make out the words. Jenny's face went pale. "I have no idea how that happened," she said into the phone. "Maybe it was kids playing pranks?" More angry talking from Chad. "No, Tom doesn't know anything. He's not smart enough to figure something like that out." That stung a little, even though I'd been expecting it. "Look, just clean it up and we'll talk later," Jenny continued. "I have to get to work." She hung up and looked at me. "Chad's car got vandalized last night. Someone wrapped it in plastic wrap and dumped protein powder all over it." "That's terrible," I said, trying to look concerned. "Did he call the police?" "I don't think so. He thinks it might have been kids from the neighborhood." "Well, that's probably it. Kids these days, you know." Jenny nodded, but she still looked worried. "I should get going. I have an early client." After she left, I called Melanie. "Phase 1 complete," I reported. How did they react?" "Exactly like you predicted. Confused, angry, but not suspicious yet." "Good. Ready for Phase 2? Phase 2 was more complex. It involved the anonymous tip line at Chad's gym, a carefully edited video clip from my security system, and a detailed report about Chad's side business in performance-enhancing drugs. I spent Monday afternoon crafting the perfect anonymous message to Elite Fitness's corporate headquarters. The video clip showed Chad and Jenny together, but it was edited to focus on their unprofessional behavior rather than their personal relationship. The drug report was based on the forum posts I'd found, supplemented with some observations about Jenny's recent physical changes that could be attributed to steroid use. By Tuesday morning, both Chad and Jenny were dealing with some serious workplace drama. Chapter 5. Escalation. The call came at 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday. Jenny, crying. "Tom, I need you to come pick me up." "What's wrong? Where are you?" "I'm at the gym. I've been fired." I found her sitting in the parking lot of Elite Fitness, mascara running down her face, looking more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. "What happened?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Someone sent corporate an anonymous video of me and Chad. They said we were behaving unprofessionally, that we were having an inappropriate relationship." "Were you?" She looked at me sharply. "What kind of question is that?" "The kind a husband asks when his wife gets fired for having an inappropriate relationship with another man." For a moment, I thought she might tell me the truth. Her mouth opened, and I could see her struggling with the words. Then she shook her head. "It's not what it looked like. Chad and I are friends, that's all. We work closely together, and sometimes people misinterpret that." "What about the drug allegations?" Her face went white. "What drug allegations?" "The report said Chad was selling performance-enhancing drugs to clients. It mentioned that you might have been involved." "That's ridiculous. I would never." "Jenny." I kept my voice gentle, concerned. "Are you taking anything? Any supplements or medications that might show up on a drug test? She stared at me. Why would you ask that? Because if corporate thinks you're involved in drug dealing, they might require a drug test as part of their investigation. And if you're taking anything, even legally, it might be better to disclose it now, rather than have it come up later. I watched her face as she processed this information. I could see the exact moment when she realized she was in serious trouble. I might have taken some supplements that Chad recommended, she said slowly. But I didn't know they were illegal. He said they were just advanced nutritional supplements. What kind of supplements? I don't know the names. Chad handled all of that. He said they would help me build muscle and lose fat more efficiently. So she had been taking steroids. That was useful information. We should probably get you a lawyer, I said. A lawyer? Tom, I can't afford a lawyer. We can't afford a lawyer. We'll figure it out. The important thing is to make sure you're protected. She started crying again, and I put my arm around her. It felt strange, comforting the woman who'd been cheating on me. But I couldn't just turn off 10 years of marriage because I was angry. It's going to be okay, I told her. We'll get through this. What I didn't tell her was that things were about to get much worse. Wednesday morning brought news that Chad had been arrested. Not for adultery, that's not illegal, but for distribution of controlled substances. Apparently someone had tipped off the police about his side business, and a search of his gym had turned up enough evidence to file charges. Jenny was a wreck. She'd been named as a potential co-conspirator, which meant she was under investigation too. She'd also failed a drug test administered by her former employer, which meant she was facing potential criminal charges, as well as the loss of her professional certifications. I don't understand how this is happening, she kept saying. It's like someone is targeting us. Maybe someone is, I suggested. Do you have any enemies? Anyone who might want to hurt you or Chad? She thought about it. Chad's wife has been acting strange lately, Melanie. She's been asking a lot of questions about his work schedule, his clients. You think she might be behind this? I don't know, maybe. She's a lawyer. She'd know how to make trouble for people. That evening, I met Melanie at a coffee shop downtown. She looked tired but satisfied. Phase 2 is complete, she reported. Chad's in jail, Jenny's under investigation, and both of their careers are effectively over. How are you holding up? Better than expected. I filed for divorce this morning. With Chad facing criminal charges, I should be able to get everything in the settlement. And the drug charges against Jenny probably won't stick. She's small time, and the prosecutor will be more interested in going after Chad. But the investigation will drag on for months, and her reputation is already destroyed. We sat in silence for a moment, watching the evening traffic through the coffee shop window. You know, Melanie said, I thought I'd feel worse about this, destroying my marriage, ruining my husband's life. But you don't. No. I feel free, like I've been carrying around this weight for years, and now I can finally put it down. I knew exactly what she meant. Chapter 6. The Final Confrontation. By Friday, the local gossip network was in full swing. Jenny's affair with Chad was the talk of the gym community, and the drug allegations had made it into the local newspaper. Jenny was getting stares everywhere she went, and her remaining friends were suddenly too busy to return her phone calls. She'd been staying home all week, alternating between crying and raging about the unfairness of it all. She still hadn't admitted to the affair, but she'd stopped denying it quite so vehemently. I think we should separate for a while, she said Friday evening over dinner. Just until this all blows over. Is that what you want? I think it would be best for both of us. I need some space to figure things out, and you shouldn't have to deal with all this drama. Where would you go? I could stay with Kelsey for a few weeks, or maybe get a small apartment. With what money? You don't have a job anymore. She flinched. I'll figure something out. Maybe I can get work at another gym. Jenny, no gym in the city is going to hire you right now, not with the drug investigation pending. Then I'll do something else. I'll wait tables, I'll work retail. Whatever it takes. I looked at her across the dinner table. This woman I'd loved for 10 years, and felt something shift inside me. The anger was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Pity, maybe. Or just sadness for what we'd lost. We need to talk, I said. Really talk. About everything. She looked down at her plate. I know. Do you want to tell me about Chad? For a long time she didn't say anything. Then, quietly. How long have you known? About a week and a half. How did you find out? I told her about the gym bag, the security footage, the credit card statements. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was crying again. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Tom. Why? It was the question I'd been wanting to ask for days. Why him? Why now? I don't know. I was bored, I guess. Restless. You work so much, and when you're home, you're tired. We never do anything exciting anymore. So you decided to have an affair. It wasn't supposed to happen. Chad was just helping me with my business, and we became friends. And then you fell in love with him? She shook her head. No, I don't love Chad. I love you. But you slept with him anyway. Yes, in our house, in our bed. Yes, while I was working to pay for your gym membership and your supplements and your expensive workout clothes. She looked up at me, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Shame. I know how it sounds, she said. I know how awful it is. But I felt so trapped, Tom. Like my whole life was just work and home and the same routine every day. Chad made me feel alive again. And now I feel like an idiot. Chad won't even talk to me anymore. He blames me for everything that's happened, says I should have been more careful. What about his wife? Did you think about what this would do to her? Jenny's face crumpled. I tried not to think about her. I know that's selfish, but I pretended she didn't exist. We sat in silence for a while. Then Jenny spoke again. What happens now? I don't know, I said honestly. I love you, but I don't trust you, and I don't know if I can learn to trust you again. Can we try? Can we go to counseling or something? I considered it. Part of me wanted to say yes, wanted to try to rebuild what we'd had, but another part of me, the part that had been humiliated and betrayed, wanted something else entirely. Maybe, I said. But first, there are some things you need to know.
I'm just and told you cement, a me masters a minute on din by monster, and totem mentasum, in wonders ho after, dan man maiden, and den bags and binders, and bound them jars, and geese and bill high.
I told her about the security footage I'd been collecting, and the evidence I'd gathered about their affair.
She'd been about. She listened with growing horror.
You did all this? She asked when I finished.
We did all this, Melanie and I, but why? Why didn't you just confront me? Why didn't you just ask for a divorce? Because you and Chad thought I was too passive and stupid to fight back. Because you were planning to leave me anyway, after you finalized some paperwork. Because you told your friends I was boring, and that I deserved whatever I got. Her face went pale. You heard that? Anginyo, and dump, millions went to handsome fundump, and a manium part, and I wait in Weinland, and then yo, a house a user, and then yambi some part, and something, and I something chat, and don't be sounds, and I denda. Yonder, and I'm and then ya, and I doubt I did also. Then young Tandia, and I ninda, as hunters, and hunter, is aimed, and then turn into one down the jumper, and I'm the hunter, and then the sand, and down, and bar, then down some and panta. And something your hand and tintant, and then some boys ham, and jump around tamp, and young send, and then tintant. And then there were in jumpers, then and then and then. And then beam in hand, and then and jumping down doors, and down in by, and then bin down just pass, the nine and min bison, and I'm bin hung, to nine and handy.
Jenny got a job at a chain restaurant across town, where nobody knew about the scandal. Chad served 6 months in county jail and lost his business. Melanie got everything in their divorce settlement and used it to start her own law practice. As for me, I kept my house, my job, and my dignity. I also kept the security system, though I didn't need it anymore. 6 months after the divorce was final, I ran into Jenny at the grocery store. She looked tired and older, but not unhappy. How are you doing? She asked. Good. You? Better. I'm seeing someone new, a teacher. He's nice. I'm glad. We stood there for a moment, two people who had once promised to love each other forever, making awkward small talk in the cereal aisle. Tom? She said as I started to walk away. Yeah? I really am sorry about everything. I know, I said. So am I. And I was. Sorry that our marriage had ended. Sorry that it had ended so badly. Sorry that we'd hurt each other so much in the process. But I wasn't sorry that I'd fought back. Sometimes passive isn't the answer. Sometimes you have to show people that underestimating you is a mistake they'll only make once. Jenny learned that lesson the hard way, and so did Chad. As for Melanie and me, we stayed friends, but nothing more. We'd been through a war together, and that created a bond, but not the kind that leads to romance. She was focused on building her law practice, and I was focused on rebuilding my life. A year later, I sold the house and moved to a different part of town. Fresh start, clean slate. The security cameras went to Goodwill. I didn't need them anymore. I'd learned everything I needed to know about the people in my life, the ones worth trusting and the ones who weren't. It was an expensive education, but it was worth every penny.